As I stepped through the decaying entrance of the psychiatric hospital, a mix of excitement and trepidation washed over me. The building was an imposing structure, its once proud architecture now sagging and crumbling. The early morning fog clung to the edges of the abandoned edifice, shrouding it in an otherworldly aura. The rusted gates and broken windows created an eerie atmosphere that promised both challenge and discovery. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of mildew and disuse. The silence was almost palpable, broken only by the occasional scuttling of unseen creatures. My camera clicked incessantly as I captured the derelict beauty of the place. The peeling paint, the shattered glass, and the faded murals that hinted at a happier past. Every room I entered was a testament to time's relentless march, with remnants of the hospital's former life scattered about. Rusted metal beds and dilapidated furniture filled the rooms, their disarray a silent witness to the lives that had once passed through these halls. The further I ventured, the more I was struck by the contrast between the hospital's grand design and its current state of decay. What had once been a place of care and healing was now a desolate ruin. The hallways were lined with faded photographs and old documents, remnants of a forgotten era. I marveled at the irony. This place, which was meant to help people, had become a monument to neglect and abandonment. Yet, amid the decay, I felt a strange sense of connection to the past, as if I was standing on the edge of history itself, peering into the shadows of what once was. Despite the initial excitement, a creeping sense of unease began to settle over me. The silence seemed to grow heavier with each step, and the shadows in the corners of my vision seemed to move with a life of their own. I pushed these feelings aside, focused on my goal of capturing the eerie beauty of the building. However, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive, as if the very walls were closing in on me. Little did I know that this unsettling sense of dread was only the beginning of a much darker journey into the heart of the hospital's secrets. As I explored deeper into the labyrinthine corridors, I came across a door partially hidden behind a stack of rotting medical equipment. The door was inconspicuously placed, almost as if it had been deliberately concealed. My curiosity, piqued by the ominous aura of the building, led me to push the door open. It creaked loudly, the sound echoing through the stillness of the basement. Descending the narrow staircase, I found myself in a dimly lit basement area, a stark contrast to the decayed elegance of the upper floors. The basement was cluttered with dusty, forgotten items, old hospital beds, tattered records, and rusting machinery. The air was colder here, carrying a heavy sense of foreboding. My flashlight flickered over the objects, revealing the grim details of the hospital's past. Among the clutter, I discovered a room that stood out. It was filled with rows of old filing cabinets, their metal drawers half open and spilling their contents. As I sifted through the documents, I found an assortment of files, each one meticulously labeled with names, dates, and disturbing details. These were not ordinary medical records. They were detailed accounts of experimental procedures conducted on patients. The records described tests that seemed more akin to torture than treatment, with descriptions of inhumane experiments and dubious practices that made my skin crawl. The photographs interspersed among the documents were even more disturbing. They depicted patients in distressing conditions, restrained and subjected to procedures that bordered on the grotesque. The clinical detachment of the images contrasted sharply with the emotional turmoil they evoked. It was as though the very walls of the hospital were holding on to the suffering and cruelty that had been inflicted within them. As I read through the files, the room seemed to grow colder, and an oppressive silence enveloped me. The records were not just a glimpse into the past. They were a chilling testament to the hospital's dark history. The sense of horror and violation I felt was overwhelming. The discovery left me shaken, and the once fascinating exploration now felt like a descent into a nightmare. The documents revealed a truth that was far more sinister than I had anticipated, and the weight of what I had uncovered began to press heavily upon me. As the disturbing realization of the experiments settled over me, an unsettling sensation began to creep into the room. The basement, once just an old, forgotten space, now felt charged with an eerie energy. The temperature seemed to drop suddenly, a cold draft moving through the room despite the absence of any open windows or doors. I could see my breath misting in the air, a chilling reminder that something was very wrong. Strange noises started to penetrate the silence, distant whispers that seemed to swirl around me, and the occasional unnerving creak of the old building. My flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows that danced on the walls, making it seem as though the darkness itself was alive. I spun around, trying to locate the source of these disturbances, but each time I turned, the room was empty, the whispers fading as quickly as they had appeared. The sense of being watched grew stronger with every passing minute. It was as if the very spirits of those who had suffered in the hospital were lingering, their presence palpable even if unseen. I felt an overwhelming compulsion to leave, but my legs felt heavy, as though the very floor was holding me back. The oppressive atmosphere made it hard to think clearly, and every small sound seemed amplified in the suffocating silence. The feeling of dread became almost physical, pressing down on me and making it difficult to breathe. I was no longer sure if the sounds I heard were real or products of my own terrified imagination. The basement, once a space for uncovering hidden truths, had transformed into a scene of psychological torment. The weight of the hospital's dark history seemed to be manifesting itself, and I was caught in the middle of a haunting experience I could barely comprehend. In a state of near panic, I forced myself to gather my things and make my way back to the surface. The shadows in the basement seemed to reach out for me as I hurried through the corridors, and the whispers followed me, echoing in my mind long after I had left the building. The once intriguing exploration had become a harrowing ordeal, and the sense of unseen eyes watching me would haunt my thoughts for a long time to come. As I emerged from the depths of the hospital and stepped into the dim light of the evening, the weight of what I had discovered began to settle more heavily on me. The oppressive chill that had clung to me in the basement seemed to follow me, a ghostly reminder of the horrors I had unearthed. The once beautiful decay of the hospital now felt tainted by the knowledge of the suffering that had occurred within its walls. My mind raced as I tried to process the full impact of my findings. The photographs and documents, which had initially seemed like a disturbing glimpse into the hospital's past, were now symbols of a deeper, more unsettling truth. The records revealed not just the inhumanity of the experiments, but also a pattern of systematic cruelty and disregard for human life. The stark reality of the patient's suffering, so vividly captured in those files, was a revelation that I struggled to accept. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stumbled upon something that was never meant to be uncovered. The basement's eerie atmosphere and the unsettling sense of being watched now felt like a direct consequence of the hospital's dark past reaching out to me. The suffering of those who had been subjected to the experiments seemed to linger in the air, a haunting reminder of the building's grim history. As I left the hospital, the sense of dread and unease persisted. The shadows of the past had left an indelible mark on my psyche, and the haunting memories of what I had seen and felt would linger long after my departure. The abandoned psychiatric hospital, once an intriguing subject for my artistic project, had become a chilling reminder of the darkness that can hide behind the facade of history. The revelations I had uncovered were not just disturbing facts. They were a profound reminder of the inhumanity that can occur in the darkest corners of our world.